Hi everyone, welcome back to my class. Students, in this session, let us understand the difference between solids, liquids, and the gases. Here are few substances. You can observe there is glass, there is a brick, there is a piece of wood, there is diamonds, correct? So, what is the one common thing that you can find in all these things? Absolutely correct. All these things they have the definite shape. Correct? They all have the definite shape. The glass has the definite shape, the diamond has a definite shape, the brick has a definite shape. Correct? All have the definite shape. And they do also have the fixed volume. Hence, we can consider these substances as solids. Correct? So now, can we compress these? Can we compress the substances? No, right? But if we try it hardly, we can break it. Instead of compressing, if we try it hardly, we can break these substances. But we cannot compress. Correct. Why? What is the reason? Because solids have the rigid structure. They are the hardest particles. They have the rigid structure and they are the hardest particles. They do not change their shape also. Correct. They do not change their shape so easily, but they can be breakable. So hence we call such substances as the solids. We call them as solids. Clear? Now let us look at some of the examples to understand the liquids. Here milk, water, oil and juice. All these are the examples for the liquids. Correct? All these substances, when we observe all these substances, they do not have the definite shape. That is the one common thing we can find. They do not have the definite shape because we can change their shape. We can change their shape when we transfer them from one vessel or one particular jar to another. Let us take, if we take this water from the bottle and then we pour it into the jar which is containing oil, the water will get the shape of the jar which is containing the oil. Correct. And when we take the oil from this bottle and when we put it into the glass, the oil get the shape of the glass. Likewise, the shape of the liquids changes. Okay, but their volume remains same. In liquids, the volume remains same. In all the cases, they have the definite volume. Here in the water, in the milk, in the oil, in the juice, all these substances they have the definite volume, but they do not have the definite shapes. Correct? And one more thing you can observe, liquids can diffuse or dissolve the particles in it. How? See, let us take an example of water. When we add some salt or sugar to the water, what happens? You all know that the particles of the sugar or the particles of salt get dissolved in the water. You know this, right? How this happened? Because there was some space present between the particles of water. Hence, the particles of the water occupy the particles of the sugar or salt when it dissolved in it. Correct? Because there was intermolecular space between the water molecules or the particles of the water. There was a space between the molecules of the water. It made the particles of the sugar or the molecules of sugar to occupy in between them. Correct? So what did you observe here? You all have observed that the liquid has the intermolecular space. It does not has the definite shape, but it do have the definite volume. Okay, so now let us focus towards the gases. Here you can observe some gas cylinders which contain the gas and the parachute which contains the gas and also incense stick. Have you observed the incense stick very clearly or closely? When we observe the incense stick, we can observe that the gas comes out in the different shapes. Have you observed that? When you light up the incense stick start producing the gas, and the gas which is coming out of the incense stick has the different shapes. Correct? That gas has the different shape. From this you can understand that the gases does not have the proper shape. They do not have the proper shape. Correct. And what about the gas found in the cylinder? The gas found in the cylinder is in the compressed state. Compressed means we can compress it. When I said about the compression in the solid, we cannot compress the solid. Correct. Whereas the gases can be compressible. They are highly compressible. Gases are highly compressible. The gases which are found in the cylinder can be highly compressible. Okay. And what is the one common thing which we can find? Here, in all the cases, when I spoke about the liquids and the solids and now in the gases, one common thing which we all can find is the mass. Mass is constant in all the three cases. In solids, in liquids and gases, the mass is constant. Let us now talk about the intermolecular spaces between the solids, liquids and the gases. See, when we observe in the solids, the intermolecular space between the molecules of the solid is very less. It is least. The intermolecular space is very less. What about the liquids? When we observe the liquids, liquids have some intermolecular spaces. There is space between the particles of the liquids. Hence, the liquids can be easily transferable from one container or one vessel to another. Correct? Then what about the gases? In gases, the intermolecular spaces is high. They have more intermolecular spaces, and the particles of the gases, they move freely. They are continuously in the motion. As the intermolecular spaces is high between the particles of the gases, the particles in the gases are continuously in the motion. Clear? They're continuously in the motion. Okay, so that was the thing which you have to understand when I talk about the intermolecular spaces between the solids, liquids, and the gases. Now, finally, let us differentiate between the solids, liquids, and the gases. When I talk about the shape, solids have the definite shape and they also have definite volume. Liquids, they do not have the definite shape, correct? They attain the shape of the container. What about gases? Gases, they neither have shape nor volume, correct? They do not have the shape as well as the volume. Second one, when I talk about the compressibility, can we compress solid? No, right? Solids are incompressible. We cannot compress. Rather, we can break down. Correct? Solids are incompressible. Liquids can be compressible to a small extent. We can compress liquids to a small extent. Whereas gases are highly compressible. We can compress the gases easily. Next, moving to third difference. There is a little space between the particles of the solid. In the solids, the arrangement of particles are in order. They do not have the space between them. Whereas when I talk about the liquids, the particles of the liquids have space between them. They have little space between them. When we talk about the gases, gases has more space compared to liquids. So the particles of the gases have space between them. Next, when we talk about the attraction between the particles in solids, the particles are closely attracted. There is very strong bond between the particles. Whereas in the liquid, the force of attraction between the liquid particles is less compared to the solids. In solids, the attraction is more, whereas in the liquids, the attraction is less compared to solids. But when we talk about the gases, the force of attraction is very, very less. That means there is very least attraction between the particles. So the attraction between the particles in the gases is very least. Whereas in the solid, it is very high. In the liquids, it is less. And in the gases, it is least. Clear? Now the final difference is, let us understand the movement of particles in the solids. Particles of solid cannot move freely. Why? Because the particles are closely arranged. Correct? The particles are closely arranged. Hence, they cannot move freely. Whereas in the liquids, as The force of attraction between the particles is less. The particles can move freely. Correct? And when we talk about the gases, the force of attraction is very less or very least in the case of gases. Hence, the particles in the gases are continuously in motion. They have the random motion. We can say they have the random motion. They are continuously in the motion. Clear? So these are some of the differences between the solids, liquids and the gases. I hope you all have understood what are solids, what are liquids, and what are the gases. And we also have understood about the properties of these and also understood the differences of the solids, liquids, and the gases. That's all for this session. I'm signing off. Thank you.